Going to throw. One-on-one. Davis has it. Touchdown. Carolina wins. Carolina is the Coastal Division champion. Javonte Williams to the left of Howell. He'll send him out into the flat right side. Howell looking, standing tall, lets it go. Man there. Touchdown. Touchdown, Carolina. The pistol. Jackson behind him. Hands off to Jackson. He tried a jump pass, and it's intercepted. Surratt intercepts it. Holy cow, Carolina's going to win. And off to Javonte Williams again. Pops it to the left. Javonte leaps over a man, crosses the 50, trucks over a defender, spins by another. Goodness gracious, he's down to about the 15, and he did absolutely everything in one carry.
Here's the shotgun snap to Aguilar. Drops back. Pressure coming. Aguilar floats it up. Incomplete. No flags. Head on back up the mountain. Carolina wins it in double overtime. Loftus out of the shotgun. Throws to the end zone. Incomplete. Incomplete. The bell belongs to us. Carolina wins it. 47-45 in double overtime.
Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio, he's at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me?
What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Heel Tough Vlog podcast. It's your host, Anthony Pagnotti, here with you guys, as always, coming at you on a Saturday night as we sit here closing in on just 3 weeks from the start of the college football season, and right around the corner, Carolina versus TCU on that Monday night. So plenty of stuff to still get you up to date on. We still have the defensive side of the ball that we have to go through with position previews. So we'll be doing that here over the next couple of weeks. We'll, of course, have our breakout players that we do every single year as a podcast, as well as the website. So keep an eye out for all of that stuff. But today, it is time to talk preseason magazine predictions, because we have not done this so far this year. We usually do each and every summer. We talk to Phil Steele. We talk to Brett Ciancia. And tonight we are doing that in one podcast here. Both guys sat down with me, gave me about 15 minutes of time. Brett Ciancia just a little bit longer than that. So you'll hear from both of those guys here on tonight's edition of the podcast on what they think for the Tar Heels is lying ahead this season. Do they think that the Tar Heels can have a lot of success in year one under Bill Belichick, or are they being a little more cautious this year? We'll get into that. And then on the way out, we'll tell you about what's coming up once again on the podcast side of things and on the website side of things. So make sure that you stick around for all that. But as I mentioned, we are talking to two of the best when it comes to preseason predictions in the magazines. And we'll start with a guy that's been doing it for as long as just about anybody, Phil Steele. And here was his take on Carolina earlier this week when I sat down with him. Pleased to be joined now by Phil Steele. He is the writer of what we like to refer to around here as the College Football Bible. It is the preview that gets you ready for the upcoming season every single year with all of the in-depth information. And Phil Steele is joining us here on this edition of the podcast. Phil, first of all, how's it going? I know crazy offseason, especially, on our side of things here over at Carolina. So how's everything been going? And just your initial thoughts on, the hiring of Bill Belichick by the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Well, it certainly is a splash hire, is it not? Bringing in one of the greatest head coaches of all time. Of course, expectations are raised and should be raised. You got to wonder what this roster is going to look like this year. There's been so much turnover and so many transfers coming in, but I think if anybody can put it together, it's Coach Belichick. Interestingly, one thing to note, everybody says, hey, the NFL is so much transition. I recently went through the NFL, and we did the NFL magazine. Mm-hmm. There's a lot less transition in NFL than there is in college nowadays. I mean, almost every NFL team is returning 3, 4, or 5 starters on the offensive line. They're much more less turnover in the NFL than there is in college nowadays.
Yeah, I believe you on that. And I mean, look, I think he's brought up how the NFL sort of prepares him for college, but I do think that there is going to be some challenges, especially with 70 new players on this roster. That's the number that he gave us at ACC Media Days. Let's start with the newest player that I think most people want to know about, Phil. When you look at Gio Lopez, what do you think about him as a quarterback, and do you think he has the ability to take that step up to the Power 4 level and succeed?
Absolutely. And in fact, the thing I've found, Anthony, is that the majority of the players that are transferring up, you get a better level of success with those guys, more hits if they have the experience level. And you look at Gio, to me, he's a guy that's solid. He's got good feet. His arm is big enough. It doesn't have a monster arm, but he does have a strong arm. Makes all the throws. He's got a quick release. He's elusive, tough to tackle, and he's somebody that the teammates at South Alabama gravitated towards. I think he's going to be a solid player here. Last year he had 66% of his passes, had a solid ratio, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and of course ran for 463 yards. He's really the type of quarterback that you want to have in college football.
So what do you think about the group that's around him at the skill positions? I think, it's a young group, but I think there is talent there. I know Jordan Shipp is a guy that Belichick and his staff really seems high on, but what do you think about that group, and is it going to be enough to help him out this year?
Yeah, I think it will be. It starts with the offensive line, and I thought there was some great pickups in the offensive line, and plus they've got some returning players. I actually rate the offensive line number 21 in the country. So if you got a good offensive line, you're in good shape. Jordan Shipp is somebody I think they're going to rely on. He was my number 32 rated wide receiver coming out of high school. He's got tremendous hands, was the team's top recruit, got his feet wet as a freshman last year. I think he's poised for a much bigger year this year. You've got Paysor back as well there. And then I believe the tight ends will get used. And you look at a guy like Jake Johnson, who comes in from Texas A&M. He had a pretty good year in 2023, and I think we'll see more of that type. They've got a South Carolina transfer in Connor Cox. Running back-wise, Benjamin Hall coming in from Michigan. You got Caleb Hood back, and Davian Gauze as well. So, I mean, there's good talent around him, and as long as that offensive line is as good as I think it will be, I believe the offense should be strong.
Well, why do you love that offensive line so much? I mean, they've got 8 new guys there, 8 transfers. They have a couple of other freshmen that are there as well. But what really sticks out about the group of transfers that they went out and got?
The experience level. I mean, you take a look at Blasky, in other words, from Georgia. He started 12 games last year here. They got the Troy transfer in Daniel King. He's got 40 career starts under his belt. The Jacksonville State transfer, Willow Steen. He has got 38 career starts under his belt. The South Carolina transfer, Ja'Kai Moore, a ton of starts under his belt. So just the experience level. And really talking to coaches across the country, that's really been something that they're honed in on, is when they're looking for a transfer to come in, they want that experience level. And that's what we have on the offensive line. There's a large amount of career starts on the offensive line, 155 career starts this year on the O-line overall. And you got to think that Belichick will get the right 5 on the line.
So you flip over to the other side of the defensive line, and not nearly as much experience. They do have Bryce Yates that they brought in from UConn. But what do you think about that group? I mean, Smith Vilbert's a guy that I think might be just waiting for his opportunity. Didn't really get much of an opportunity at Penn State with some of the edge rushers that they had there. And then DeAndre Robinson. What do you think about that group overall?
Yeah, now this one was tough for me to put a finger on because there are so many transfers, defensive line, linebacker, and even into the secondary. Secondary is probably the most veteran returning unit of the team. And, adding a player like Thaddeus Dixon in the secondary from Washington, I think is a big plus. So I'm not concerned that much with the secondary, but the defensive front 7, it is so new. Of course, Belichick knows a thing or two about running solid defenses. How quickly will these guys grasp to it? You got to think that was part of his equation when he was bringing in the portal transfers, is how are they going to adapt to his defense? But I'm anxious to watch these guys on the field and see how they perform in this new scheme on the defensive side of the ball. It's tough for me to put a finger on that front seven.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe to say, especially with so many new faces. Some guys that have experience, especially a linebacker with Andrew Simpson, Mekhi Bayor, but we have to see how it ends up actually translating onto the field. Now, what about the hire of Steven Belichick as the defensive coordinator? Last year did some really good things at Washington. Do you think that sort of success travels over here to Carolina?
Yeah, I do think it does. You take a look at the Washington situation last year. They're coming off a national championship. And then last year when I was going over the team with Coach Fish, the first thing was, give you an idea how many players they had as far as a veteran unit last year. When we contacted Washington, asked them for pictures for the magazine from players from the previous year, they're like, we don't have any. Everybody's gone. And so perfect defense coordinator, I think, for this situation, because it's a brand new defense, and he had a brand new defense in Washington basically last year. So, and I thought he did a good job. They played a brutal schedule. They played the toughest schedule in the Big 12 and performed well. So I think he's a good hire, and definitely he's a guy that I think knows a thing about Bill Belichick's defenses.
Yeah, just a little bit. Really quickly about special teams. What do you feel like that unit looks like going into the season? Is a unit that Carolina should feel good about, that they can rely on, or are there some questions there?
Well, last year they were number 19 in my in my special teams rankings. They've got their punter back, who had a decent net last year. I think he'll be improved in his third year. Kicking wise, they bring in Marshall's kicker and Reese Verhoff. He had 14 and 19 field goals last year, was part of their Sun Belt championship squad. So that's good. I think that they'll have a decent special teams. I want to put them at the top of the league right now, but I do think it'll be a decent special teams.
Yeah, that's good. That's something that Carolina definitely has wanted for a while now under Mac Brown. Seems like they got a pretty good kick returner in Chris Culliver as well back there. Phil, when you look at this schedule, I think that's the thing that everybody wants to talk about with this Carolina team, especially some of the people that don't cover them day in and day out, because they're pointing to this as one of the easier schedules out there. Do you see the same thing, and does this set up for Bill Belichick to have success in his first season at Carolina?
Yeah, what a great gift for Coach Belichick is this schedule that they've got this year. In fact, I was enough to I've got North Carolina number 6 on my most improved list this season. And, the ACC's got a lot of quality teams, and there's so many question marks with North Carolina, but you factor in that schedule. If they get past TCU in the opener, they'll be favored over Charlotte and Richmond and UCF. I think UCF has got basically a brand new squad also with Scott Frost. I'll take Belichick over Frost in that one. So I think North Carolina goes on the road and grabs that. There's possibility of being 4-0 when they host Clemson. Now, I don't think they're going to beat Clemson. Clemson's a loaded team. They're a veteran team. They're a homegrown team. And by the way, Anthony, I've got a blog on philsteele.com right now about homegrown teams. Check that out. Have your readers check that out. You'll find it very interesting, I think, as far as the makeup of the teams this year. But then you look at the rest of the schedule. Cal's got all kinds of questions. They lost a lot in the spring transfer portal window. Virginia's at home. At Syracuse. Syracuse lost a lot from last year. Stanford, Wake Forest, brand new team as well. Duke at home, and then NC State. I think the final 2 games are the toughest besides Clemson in the ACC schedule. So it's a schedule tailor-made for success. I know North Carolina's win total 7.5 this year. I'm going over on that one. And it's basically because of the schedule. As many unknowns as I have on the defensive side of the ball, I love this schedule for North Carolina.
So would you say that 8 wins is sort of a safe expectation for Carolina fans in the first year? Like, what in your mind would say success for Bill Belichick in year 1?
Success, I think he'd be really happy with 9 or 10 wins, which are a possibility of this schedule. But I think with all the transition that this team's gone through, as you mentioned, 70 new players on this squad trying to mold them together. First year he's in college football. I think if they do get to 8 wins, which they should, then yes, it would be a good enough first year. But I think the potential's there for 9 or potentially even 10 wins if everybody buys in, which you should if you're playing for Coach Belichick, and you're a college player. And I think the potential's there for a good-sized year for North Carolina.
Well, if they win 9 or 10 games, what is the outlook for the rest of the ACC? Do you think that they are a team that could at least be competing into the final couple of weeks to make it to the ACC championship game?
Yes, I think they could be competing for it. Like I said, the Duke and NC State games in the final 2 weeks are strong. I do believe Clemson runs the table this year, and I think either SMU or Miami of Florida probably ends up with just one loss. The winner of that game when they play November the 1st, that's going to be huge. SMU gets Miami of Florida at home. I only have SMU an underdog in one game at Clemson. I only have Miami of Florida an underdog in one game that's at SMU. So getting into that level of Miami and SMU is going to be tough. But and I think North Carolina might end up with 2 ACC losses, which might put them out of the picture. But yeah, heading into the final 2 weeks of the season, I can see them being a contender for an ACC title spot.
We would love it. That would be amazing. Phil, great stuff as always. Tell everybody where they can check out your preview guide for this year, where they can get it at their local stores.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Anthony. It's only available at 2 locations. Barnes & Noble and Books A Million are the only brick and mortar places to get it, so don't waste your gas money looking for it. It's 360 pages this year, the biggest it's ever been. It's like getting 136 media guides rolled into one, 2 full pages on each team. Now, you can also order it at philsteele.com, and if you order it at philsteele.com, I'm going to charge you a shipping charge. It costs like $10 to ship this thing. However, I give you the digital magazine absolutely free, and the digital magazine's updated all the way through September. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, philsteele.com. And 2 other quick notes for you, Anthony. On philsteele.com for digital magazines, I've got an FCS magazine with 2 full pages on every FCS team. Become an instant expert on every single one of them. Like if you want to know about Richmond, who North Carolina plays this year, 2 full pages in the FCS magazine, and an NFL magazine with 4 full pages on each NFL team. Those digital magazines are up and available right now at Phil Steele, STEELE.com.
Phil, you are an absolute animal when it comes to this stuff, man. We love it. It is exactly what we need to get prepared for the college football season. I have to pick mine up every single year. Thanks for always giving us some time. We really appreciate you stopping by, and we'll talk to you again this time next year.
Sounds great, Anthony. Always love talking North Carolina football with you each year, Anthony.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, so there you go. There's Phil Steele right there. He, of course, very high on the Tar Heels, and you could tell right there. Seems like he is really liking what Carolina's got this year, especially schedule-wise, talent-wise. I think he still probably has some few questions, but I think he's really given the edge to Bill Belichick as a head coach. Now, okay, he thinks that Carolina has a chance to be pretty good competing for the ACC championship down the stretch of the season. What about Brett Ciancia of Pick Six Previews? I know we've been a little hit or miss in the last couple of years with Brett, but was able to reach out to him this year and get him back on the podcast. Here is Brett Ciancia talking about what he expects for Carolina in the first year under Bill Belichick. We are now joined by the man that writes the Pick Six Previews. That is Brett Ciancia, one of our longtime friends here on the podcast, and he is joining us once again this season. The most accurate predictor of the college football preview magazines from 2014 through 2024. And he is here with us. His 2025 magazine is officially live. You can go to his Twitter at Pick Six Previews, and you will see it in the link at the top. But Brett, first of all, how's it going, man? Glad you could join us again this year. And I know this is one you're probably looking forward to just because there are so many storylines around Tar Heel football that we have never seen to this point.
Yeah, Anthony, thanks for having me on. And yeah, absolutely. It's one of the storylines of the whole offseason, really. And at Pick Six Previews, I cover all 68 Power 4 teams. So I'm looking at the whole national landscape, and this is certainly one of the storylines of the entire season. So excited to break it down with you. It's a busy time over here. We have the digital editions being emailed out. We had another truckload of magazines go out today. So really exciting time of year. Busy, but the best kind of busy. And, talking in summer is the best because everybody's undefeated. Everybody's excited. everybody's optimistic. So I can't wait to break it down with you.
Yeah, well, we're definitely optimistic on this side. There's no doubt about it. And one of the reasons that we are is because of who the new head coach of the Tar Heels is. You go from Mac Brown, who I think, brought Carolina back to being a relevant program again, which was what he was hired to do. But it felt like there were a few too many wins that were left on the table for him. So Carolina goes out and shows everybody that they are invested in the football side of things and go out and hire Bill Belichick as their next head coach. Just take me through from your perspective as a national writer, when you first saw the rumors of this possibly happening and then Carolina makes the hire, what was your thinking process as to what Bill Belichick could be and what kind of hire this was for Carolina?
Yeah, well, two parts. I think first, just on the overall just national football landscape, I think it was massive. And I was shocked at first, like everybody else. And then I started to think about it, and it almost feels like the NCAA is moving a little bit more towards an NFL type model. I mean, it doesn't seem as crazy as it did maybe 5 or 10 years ago that one of the NFL's greatest coaches would want to try his hand in the college game, because with NIL, with transfers, with a player personnel, a general manager, it just feels more and more like a pro structure. So yeah, why not? I think he's got some ties to North Carolina. His dad coached there. So yeah, it was a shock at first, but then it started to make a little bit of sense. And then of course, from the Carolina perspective, this was the more intriguing to me, is that this really signaled finally that Carolina is all in. I mean, they are really going to make a run for this. The financial investment is there. They want to be a big-time football brand to match or come near the basketball brand that you guys have built for generations. So it looks like, they've been described as the sleeping giant of college football for a long time. It looks like finally the financial resources and commitment are there. And, of course, that'll help the next few seasons, but it almost signals a longer term towards maybe the SEC or the Big Ten as we move towards a Power 2. So a lot of storylines within the storyline. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's excited to see it. As you talked about, we've been talking here in the last couple of days about the SEC and everything like that. But when it comes to this year's squad, one of the things that I've heard a lot here over the last couple of weeks is the people that are on the fence about Carolina. The people that think that Carolina is going to be very successful, they think that Carolina is very talented roster, that there is enough talent to be able to win, and they really trust Bill Belichick as a developer to be able to get the job done. There's other people that are on the other side of the fence that really are saying this roster isn't as talented as people are giving it credit for. This is one that could struggle this season. I'm someone that's kind of on the fence. I think there are some pieces that I really like talent-wise, but I also think there are some areas where there are deficiencies. What do you think about the overall talent of this group and how they stack up against the rest of the Power Four?
Yeah, well, this roster, you look at the transition it's going through. I mean, almost every position group and position spot on offense is going to be a rebuild or a reload. I mean, it's a complete restart. And then on defense, the entire defensive line gone, both linebackers gone. And what hurt really was the post-spring departure of a couple of guys. Losing Bo Atkinson, he was the only returning starter or even two deep guy on that defensive line. You lose him after spring to Ohio State. And then Amari Campbell, returning starting linebacker, you lose him to Penn State. So it just seems like those two hurt. Now, they do have some good transfers coming in. In fact, you saw they landed the top 10 in the transfer rankings nationally. They landed a bunch of guys on my all-transfer team, a thing I've had to put in, which is, it sounds funny, but you have your All-American, your All-ACC, and just with so much player transformation and transfers, I had to go with an all-transfer team. So they landed 4 guys on my ACC transfer team. You got Bryce Yates, the defensive lineman from UConn, both linebackers, House and Gabayer from Washington and Nebraska, and another Washington defender, Thaddeus Dixon. Those two came along with Steve, Belichick's son, the coordinator from Washington last year. And even in his first season at the college level, he turned them into the #1 passing defense in the country. So, but to your question on talent level, it's a lot of mystery to me. So then you turn to the next piece, which is coaching. And I think I trust this staff a lot. Obviously, you have to trust Belichick himself. But even with the transition from the pro to the college game, I think you're going to get a well-coached, well-disciplined team. So if you're looking for the optimist spin, look at all the one-score games within this conference, and maybe with just a little bit of coaching and situational awareness and and cleaning things up, maybe they'll flip a lot of those to wins.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the reason that you bring in a guy like Bill Belichick to take over after what happened with Mac Brown, where, a lot of those close games didn't go Carolina's way. A lot of those games that you were expected to win and win handedly didn't go your way. And the lack of discipline was certainly something that stood out during those times. It's interesting. You talked right there about your all transfer team, and you've got the guys on the defensive side of the ball as the guys that you're really excited about. Is there a case to be made that this Carolina team, believe it or not, because of how much we have struggled on that side of the football, that this team might actually be better on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball this year?
It's definitely possible. And I know, in my book, I do my game grader formula, and I also have my advanced offense and advanced defense stats. Long story short, over the last 10 years, UNC is one of the most offense-heavy programs out there when I compare the O versus the D. Number 10 on offense, bottom 10 defense the last decade. And, I'm sure UNC listeners are familiar with how that has looked. But it might sound like a shock, but I think I'm leaning more on the defense this year. It's a bit more proven in the sense that I know a little bit of this personnel. I know where they've been last year. They were all conference guys or starters elsewhere. And then even Steve himself having that year in the college game. I think it's a little bit more advanced than the offense is right now. And a little bit of that is the injury. I mean, you're probably, more than me, but when I wrote it and published it in July, it was still a question at quarterback whether Max Johnson would be returning about that rehab timing. So that's why they went out and they got Gio Lopez from South Alabama. Had a good freshman year last year. You look for a little bit of a boost in his second season, but so many question marks. I mean, 3 linemen gone, and the tight end duo is gone, and All-American Hampton at running back is gone. So I think I trust the defense slightly more right now at this point, as crazy as that sounds.
So when it comes to Gio Lopez, as a guy that, does a lot of this stuff, breaks down some of these transfers and everything like that, just on the surface, what do you think about his game? And do you think he's someone that can translate to this P4 level? Because it is a little bit of a jump from that group of 6 level.
Yeah, that's the catch. And normally when I'm evaluating a freshman quarterback, you look at it and the stats never really, they never pop off the page. It's usually a lot of turnovers, a lower completion percentage. It's just a guy getting up to speed. But with Lopez, it's kind of the opposite. Actually, he had a great stat season last year, 66% completion, 18 touchdowns to just 5 picks. He also brings a dual threat ability too. He added 500 rushing yards. So great stat season for a freshman. I was shocked. But then here's the catch is that, moving up from the Sun Belt to the ACC. So maybe that's where you get a little bit of a step back statistically. But, I mean, for within the context of where he played last year as a new starter, he played excellent. So I think that's going to help out the room with or without Johnson coming back because the other 2 guys transferred down. So, it's also he didn't have spring ball either. So you have that in there. It's a late addition. We'll see. I mean, like I said, I like how he did last year. It's a whole new ball game moving up to the ACC, though.
Yeah, certainly is. And, the thing is, he's going to need some help around him. This is a very young wide receiving core. It's an offensive line that's almost completely rebuilt through the transfer portal. So there's a lot that's unknown. How do you feel about those positions, though? And do you think that that's still a side of the ball? Kind of like, we have been talking about that as the season goes along, they'll get better in that area and become an offense that will be able to put up points.
Yeah, well, I like the receiver room a little bit too. You lose your top 2 guys with Jones and McCollum. I really like that combo last year, but the staff was able to pull Kobe Paysour out of that transfer portal. He was one of those guys that was considering leaving. They got him to re-sign at UNC. That was huge because that's at least one known piece to build around. Chris Culliver also, he's had that high recruiting grade for a while. I want to see that translate to the college game, but that should be your 1-2 punch. With a high upside there. And then at offensive line, lost a couple guys that I was excited about. I mean, you lose Howard Sampson, starting left tackle. He transferred out to Texas Tech as part of that big oil transfer class out there that they assembled. He's a headliner for them now, unfortunately, for UNC. They were able to keep 3 guys out of that exit portal, just like Paysour at receiver. So you got 3 returning linemen to build around. If you look at my ACC positional rankings, you'll see North Carolina in the top half of the conference for offensive line. So I do trust that O-line a bit more than at other spots right now. I think that those 3 guys coming back from the transfer portal. That was huge. So I think that was something to build around, especially if you have a young quarterback back there. So that's where I would go there. Of course, Culliver does have the higher upside, but we haven't seen it yet. So I'll go with the O-line.
Yeah, the other guy to keep an eye on in the receiver room, just a little tip for you, Jordan Shipp this year I think is going to have a huge season. So keep an eye on him as well. When it comes to those positional rankings, tell people about some of the areas that you're most concerned about with this Tar Heel team and why you're so concerned about it, because those are the things that ultimately could be the downfall of this roster this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the biggest question mark is quarterback. And, if you're in the preview magazine business, you don't like question marks here in July and August. You want some certainty. You want to know what you're signing up for when you're picking a team. And when you have such a big question mark at quarterback, and when I say question, I mean the injury concern and timeline of Max Johnson, because when he's healthy, I know what I have with him. But the injury uncertainty is there. And then adding a second-year quarterback from the Sun Belt after spring ball, that's a question. So I think that's the lowest rated room right now. If Max Johnson's healthy, we can vault them up into the top 10, well into the top 10. But right now with the question marks, it's 13th in the ACC. And then the next lowest was that wide receiver tight end room. And it's a shame because last year, one of the best tight end duos in the conference. And, the excellence at tight end was probably why Kitchens was retained and promoted, because he was in charge of that tight end room and they were excellent last year. So you lose both those guys. And then we talked about the receivers part of that. So wide receiver tight end is still a question, even though there's some breakout potential at receiver. It's just still a transitional unit for me.
Yeah, and I think those are areas that we are definitely still monitoring. I think quarterback, there are some decent expectations there just because we believe that Gio Lopez is going to win that job. But, you never really do know what his transition is going to be like to that Power 4 level. So it'll be interesting to monitor that. Now, here's the one thing that Carolina's got going in their favor, Brett, and that is the schedule for this season. How much do you think the schedule that they have lends to them having a successful year in the ACC this year? Because it seems like they avoid just about every big team outside of Clemson.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the biggest changes since I've started the publication 10, 12 years ago. Back then you had divisions within the conferences. So you had pretty much the same schedules across the conference. You kind of knew who you were playing every year. Now you got a 17-team ACC divisionless, and you got only 8 conference games. So what that means is it's so much variance schedule to schedule. This year, UNC definitely wins the schedule lottery. You look at it, they draw 7 of the ACC's bottom 10. So 7 out of the bottom 10. 4 of the bottom 5. All 4 of those are winnable games, and that could be getting UNC in the bowl season right there. So they avoid some of the big names, favorable draw, and I don't think the roster is really ACC championship caliber yet. I'm looking more towards 2026 in terms of roster, but it is a favorable draw this year. And like I said earlier, if it's a lot of one-score games like the ACC tends to be in this middle to upper tier, I trust Belichick's staff more than most. So just get yourself into those close games, and I think you're going to have different outcomes than the prior regime had in those close games. So that's where I stand with them. I think it's an excellent schedule, but still a roster in transition for 2025.
All right, last question for you here. With the schedule, with the talent on this team, everything combined that we talked about, what do you think is a safe expectation this year for Tar Heel fans going into the season? Because I think it goes all over the place. There are some people that think Carolina fans should be very optimistic because of the schedule and the talent that they have. And there's other people that think you should probably be tempering your expectations a little bit. Where do you fall expectation-wise in terms of wins for Carolina fans this year?
Yeah, well, first start in the non-conference. With TCU, I'm really high on TCU. You'll notice in the preview magazine, I have them in the top 25 nationally. Nobody else has them anywhere on the radar, but I think TCU is a really solid team. So I am picking the Horned Frogs in the opener. But from there, I see 3 other non-conference wins. You'll beat Charlotte, beat Richmond, and beat UCF. You're catching UCF in a transition year where they're bringing back Scott Frost, projected towards the bottom of the Big 12. So I see a 3-1 non-conference slate. That's a good start there. Clemson's a likely loss. I have them winning the conference outright. And then from there, it's just a lot of toss-up games. I see UNC beating Stanford and Cal and Wake Forest. Those are 3 really winnable games. Duke and NC State are more toss-ups for me. Same with UVA. I'll throw UVA into the toss-up category as well. And I know I'm rambling here out of order, but I do see Syracuse, another swing game. I think they'll win that one. So I think that chalks up to a 7-5 if my math checks out, and that's a 4-4 ACC record. That puts them right in the middle of the conference, and that matches where I had them in the preview magazine. I've got them 8th out of 17. Now we're talking right here. I mean, a couple of those that I just said were possible losses could flip. I mean, we're talking a field goal or 7-point spreads all over the place. So 7-5 or 6-6 should be the expectation. I think anything less than bowl season with this schedule is a disappointment, even in the transition. But what I'm more excited about UNC, I mean, almost the record, we'll see about this year with that, but I want to see 2026 recruiting. I want to see Belichick's staff with a full cycle of recruiting and resources and another transfer haul, because he was signed right after that early signing day. So you can't really chalk up that first class to him at all. I want to see his first full cycle and what this really looks like going forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think 2025 is a year where if this team can find a way to somehow win 8 games, you'd be very satisfied with that. I think the expectation should be around 6 or 7 just to at least make a bowl game, get some of the momentum flowing, and then really lead into next year where then the expectation should be heightened. You should be expecting that if Bill is able to win a lot of those close games, that's going to continue to shine through into next year. So I'm excited. I think it's one of the biggest storylines in college football this year. It's different for Carolina to really be the center point of college football, or one of the big center points of college football. So it'll be very interesting to watch throughout the year. Hey, Brett, thanks for joining us, man. We always love having you on. Incredibly accurate, guys. He is the #1 most accurate from 2014 to 2024. So make sure you go to Pick Six Previews on Twitter. It's just at Pick Six Previews. And then you can go into the bio there and get your 2025 season preview, whether you want it digitally or you want it actually sent to you. You can get that done there. And the one that's sent to you is fantastic. I think it's the perfect size for you to be able to take with you if you're, bringing it with you to, a gathering or something like that. For us, for guys that are on the radio side of things, we love being able to transport it back and forth with us to work and everything like that. So it's the perfect size. It's the perfect guide to get you ready for this season. So make sure you guys go ahead and pick that up. Anything else you want to plug, Brett?
No, that covers it, Anthony. Thanks a ton. And it's a digital copy, the hard copy. And then also we have an in-season product now, Pick Six Plus. If you like all the stats and info that are in the magazine, it's updated every week during the season and emailed out every Tuesday morning. All the advanced stats, my game grader, against the spread trends, all that kind of stuff, talent profiles, everything. So there's a sample on the website there, pick6previews.com. And I would say, we talked about it with the projected record. I think more than just the record, I was thinking about it. I just want to see UNC just play fundamental football. I think that's what you want to see from the staff. They're making their tackles. They're not missing tackles. You don't want sloppy line play anymore. So no matter what the record is, I think if you can clean up just the line play and the missed tackles and start to just get back to brass tacks, I think that's the goal for this year. Get a bowl and get back to fundamental football.
That would be fantastic. And hopefully that's what will happen. And we'll be talking to you next year about a team that you will be looking at potentially on the precipice of making the college football playoff. Hey, Brett, Thanks so much. Enjoy this upcoming season, and we'll talk to you again next year. All right, man? Yeah, thanks a ton. Anytime. All right. All right, so there's Brett Ciancia from Pick Six Previews. Really appreciate him joining us the other week. And he not nearly as high as Phil Steele is on Carolina, but I do think still, relatively positive that the Tar Heels will have pretty decent season in the first year under Bill Belichick. So if you are interested in college football magazines, those are two of the best right out there. I think, Brett's a little more concise. Phil Steele, as you heard him say right there, basically gives you 136 media guides for the season. So it is amazing. Both of those guys do a tremendous job, and I appreciate them so much for stopping by with me each and every year to talk about the Tar Heels with Phil. Been doing it about 7 years now. He was asking me that the other day. I think it's 7 or 8 years that we've been doing that. So Pretty crazy to believe that this podcast has been going on that long and that we've been able to talk to him every single year. So help those guys out. That'd be great if you guys can do that. And of course, you can help us out by going over to our social media pages, as you saw there, scrolling along the bottom of the screen while Brett Ciancia was on. I'll throw it up here for you guys. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is one thing that we're pushing heavily right now, is that you guys go over there and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the YouTube shorts that we have. You can also check out the videos that we have breaking down the positions. We're going to continue to do that a little bit further. It sort of breaks down even the breakdowns that we do during this time of year. So that's really cool. If you're looking for specific players, if you want to hear about Davian Goss, if you're just looking for, some talk about Jordan Shipp or Kobe Paysour, stuff like that, you can find those editions of the podcast up there as well. So make sure you guys do that, and then go over to the Heel Tough Blog Twitter page at Heel Tough Blog on Twitter. Check that out and make sure that you give us a follow there. Turn on the post notifications. That is a strictly Heel Tough Blog only posting. That's what we post on there. That page is strictly focused on that, so you'll only get our content on there. That's the best way to keep up with everything that we do, is you'll get a notification anytime that we put something else up. We're retweeting a live video or posting an edition of the podcast after the fact is over. So make sure that you go there. And then the Facebook page, we've been doing that, of course, for years now as well. If you're watching us on Facebook, you know that we have the Facebook page. Just go over there, like the Facebook page. That would really help us. And if you do, it will let you know whenever we go live if you want to watch on Facebook. What's coming up on the podcast side of things? Well, we're getting into the defensive line tomorrow. Make sure that you're here for that preview. We'll be talking Bryce Yates, DeAndre Robinson, Smith Vilbert, and plenty more guys along that defensive line for Carolina this season. So you don't want to miss that. And then we'll be going through linebackers and defensive backs here pretty quickly after that. And then special teams will close us out. We also are going to be doing the breakout players. We told you that earlier in the show, that we'll have that edition of the podcast that we'll do as well. And then it should be about time to get you guys ready for the season opener against TCU. So plenty of stuff on the horizon on the Heel Tough Blog podcast. You don't want to miss any of it. So make sure that you are subscribed to that YouTube page, or if you're a listener, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast feed. We would greatly appreciate that. Meanwhile, on the website side of things, just put up the defensive back preview today. If you want to read that, that sort of gets you ready for what the podcast will be talking about. We'll go a little more in depth on the podcast side of things with our thoughts on each player, with Josh joining me. So that's the best way to really get prepared for those editions of the podcast, is by reading those articles on the website. We go pretty in depth there, and we give you our projected depth chart, which we do not do on the podcast side of things. So make sure you go and do that. Go back, do it for the defensive line before we go live tomorrow, so that you can catch up on everything when it comes to this team going into this season. So that wraps it up for this edition of the podcast. Want to thank Phil Steele and Brett Ciancia for joining me. Want to thank you guys for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.